There's no decision to reform the Venetian arsenal, though. Yes, there is. Oh, they can take any of the sides. That's cool. This is something I don't think I've ever seen before. Yeah, I know all the Italian states are focus trees. I've just never seen Venice appear this early, where they can legitimately actually get through some of their focus tree. I think Stalin is still in Georgia. There he is. The efficient sociopath. Trotsky. Mexico maybe? I can't see their characters. Don't know where Trotsky is. Yeah, Stalin is a nickname. Orsby, thank you very much for the bit. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. January 10th. The day that America discovered the anti-tank gun. Wait, 37, 37, 37. Hold your horses. Thank you again for the bit. I checked the Kaiserreich wiki. Trotsky's location is unknown in lore as well. Okay. When did we say the inauguration was? 20th. Okay. 3 more days. Two. 1. 20th. At 1 a.m. Nice. The country's social problems have forced the American people to turn to radical solutions. The two-party system has broken down, and Jack Reid has been sworn in as the 31st President of the United States, with Norman Thomas being sworn in as the Vice President. In a stirring speech in Washington, D.C., Reid has pledged to defend the interests of the workers and work to help revolutionize society for the good of all Americans. However, the SPA's slim majority in Congress means it may find it challenging to pass meaningful legislation, especially in the Senate, where the AFP has promised to filibuster any law it sees as detrimental to America. So, basically any law that these guys pass. Enact sweeping reforms, or focus on the longists. We don't like the longest, but we got into power for legitimate reasons. So we're going to enact sweeping reforms. Reforms dismantling business trusts and reducing the power of the private banks to expropriate property must be passed, even if it is to be delivered by a presidential executive order. Socialist Party of America greatly gains political power. One of Reid's first acts as president was to enshrine the rights to collectively bargain in law. Unwilling to wait to overcome the Senate filibuster and citing the violent conflict between the FP and the SPA paramilitaries, Reid passed an executive order that forced the state and federal governments to recognize a union's right to exist and engage in collective bargaining without exception, thus forbidding the yellow dog contracts. While the unions rejoice, many in the country denounce the executive order as a tyrannical act of executive branch. And we now have 25% power here. Yeah, Transimir declared war on Russia, basically meaning that Transimir / Japan are in the same war as the Soviets. They allied together against Russia. Whether Soviets are actually in that faction is another question. They are not. They're just allied in the war. The bourgeoisie are furious! From New York to San Francisco, the rich and the powerful protested Reid's election in the Hearst newspapers and the congressional addresses. It is clear that the upper class is furious at the enforcement of the Executive Order 7080 and have begun to radicalize against the SPA as a result. Act quickly. Now that the election is over, the new government will need to take action, and quickly. Failure to act will likely mean the intervention by the military to solve the crisis, though even acting carries no guarantee of the political crisis being solved. Opposition denounces Reid as a tyrant. Although they agreed on little else, the Democrats, Republicans and the America First parties have been quick to denounce Reid publicly across the nation for his enactment of Executive Order 7080, claiming that it to be an overreach of the executive branch and the start of a slide into tyranny. Huey Long has gone so far as to have vowed not to follow any law that dictator Reid imposes upon America. Long followed up by comparing President Reid to Vladimir Lenin, almost gloating that Reid would share Lenin's fate. It's a bit harsh. There it is. The halt on the foreclosures. Directing the Secretary of Commerce to temporarily take possession of and operate the facilities of certain financial companies. The inability to deal with the Great Depression had been the death of two major parties, and it would be the death of the SPA as well, unless Reid acted quickly and decisively. Believing that the corrupt financial sector was primarily responsible for creating and prolonging the Depression, Reid has moved to nationalize the banks of Wall Street to force them to act in the public rather than the private good. This includes stopping banks from foreclosing on bankrupt homeowners. A filibuster by Senator Roosevelt has forced Reid to resort to an executive order, appealing yet again to national security. While popular with the lower classes, many of the upper classes claim Reid is drunk on his power and well on his way to declare himself a dictator. The rich will now pay. Now what can I do? Nothing. The Supreme Court hears case on Order 7089. Supreme Court has allowed the first challenge of Executive Order 7089, Standard Oil of California versus Paul Matic, to be heard. This case is brought by Paul Matic to argue Standard Oil's monopolistic powers have overtaken democratic power. The accusation of Standard Oil bribing the Boston City Council to be taken very seriously. The nation waits to see if Reid's power will be checked, or whether the SBA will continue to enact their agenda in defiance of the state. Or of the Senate, even. But the Senate are, of course, the state. Why is Trotsky hated in history? What did he do exactly? I don't think he's hated. He's just seen as a massive meme in this, because in vanilla Hearts of Iron he can move to Mexico and take over the government. Which historically he did. He did move to Mexico, where he was then assassinated, probably on Stalin's order. Executive Order 7100 nationalized the minerals, directing the Secretary of the Interior to temporarily take possession of and operate the facilities of certain mining companies. The belief that public land was a public good is essential to most left-leaning parties, and the flagrant abuse of public land by mining companies had long been a source of deep bitterness for the transcendentalists. To most of Reid's cabinet, it was clear that the private mining companies would be entirely unable to balance the needs of the public with their greed, and moved to nationalise the drilling and the mining companies, included Standard Oil, whose case against Executive Order 7089 was still pending. This is seen by many as an attack on the political rival, and further confirmation that Reid wishes to turn America into a syndicalist state like the Commune of France, the Union of Britain. America's resources belong to the people! minus 30 stability now. Yikes! That's a lot. Excavation 1 and concentrated industry are done. Although Reid has shown no sign of concern over Standard Oil versus Polmatic in public, his administration is concerned the conservative-leaning Supreme Court would rule 7-2 in favour of the capitalists and revert whatever reforms had already been put into place. Citing Lincoln's court packing during the Civil War as precedent, Reid was asked Senate Majority Leader Lael London to remove the filibuster for judicial appointees and has increased the size of the Supreme Court to 15. It is clear that he intends to appoint 6 pro-socialist justices to the bench, which will ensure his executive orders remain constitutional. This has provoked a firestorm of protest even from the left-leaning Farmer Labour and progressive parties, which until now had remained neutral or supportive of Reid. We must defend the workers, whatever it takes. Also, more technology. That one. And that one. Republic has been declared in Serbia. Since the end of the Austrian occupation in 1920, Serbia has officially been a kingdom. They never dared crown a king as they were forced to keep a low profile in light of further Austrian aggression. Bowing to mounting internal pressure against the regressive regime, Petar Bojovic, the regent of Serbia for almost 2 decades, has voluntarily stepped down. Slobodan Janovic is the first president of the Serbian Republic, acting as such until elections can be held. Democracy in the Balkans? That's new. So if this is the Serbian Republic, are they still going to go after Bulgaria? I think probably yes, because it's still a huge part of their tree. Trotsky is hated because the Syndicalists view him as a reason the revolutionary failed, because he refused to send his army to rescue several Red Army groups, including Zhukov's, forcing them to defect to get food. That may be old law, however. Violence against the SBA spreads. In the immediate aftermath of Reid's court packing, Long has come out aggressively against Reid, all but calling for an armed uprising. Whole counties and states, especially in the south, are refusing to accept Reid's executive orders as law, and there have been a massive increase in reported violent clashes between the Minutemen and the SPA militia. Unless order is restored, the country is bound for a civil war. Police should be helping the people. What is the goal for this game? To win. Just don't ask me win what, because I have no idea. Clashes between the Minutemen and the police. Long's calls for resistance against Reid have been interpreted by some Minutemen as a call for resistance against any governmental agency. Police clashes with Long's Minutemen have now become common throughout the country. In cities with strong SPA presence, members of the General Defence Committees helped the police restore law and order, but in the Deep South, the Minutemen effectively have complete control. Somebody stop Long! We're getting closer. I can sense it. MacArthur marches into Washington. Reid's support in DC has finally bottomed out. General Douglas MacArthur has marched into Washington, D.C. today to arrest Reid and his cabinet at the White House. MacArthur's marches reminded many in D.C.'s of Cox's army of 1932, except that these men are motivated to preserve the status quo and were cheered instead of booed. Having been tipped off by the SPA informant in MacArthur's command staff, Reid was able to stay ahead of the traitorous general and escape to Chicago. MacArthur has chosen to inhabit the White House and coordinate an investigation into Reid from an executive chair. Civil war is imminent. My allegiance was to the Republic, MacArthur. To democracy! Military junta becomes the ruling party. Boss man MacArthur is now the boss man. President Reid escapes to Chicago. President Reid has escaped to Chicago and declared that MacArthur is a traitor to all the people of America. His cause have gained a great deal of support in the Steel Belt, and a number of governors have already announced they do not recognize the illegitimate authority of the current government. They've closed off their borders to American soldiers, raising a chilling spectre of the Civil War the country experienced less than a century ago. The disaster has begun. Stand by the Republic, or the revolution has begun. Stand by the workers! And suddenly everything is a whole lot better. So I'm going to save here. And then I guess we... Oh! I didn't realise that I couldn't just go bop, 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 bop. In that case, I would have gone for Pennsylvania, obviously. Well, you learn, I guess, as we do this. Did it say there was a timer? I don't think it said there was a timer, did it? Oh yeah, active for 12 days. Effects when removed, 6 militia units are raised. Well, we're going to raise the 19 militia in Pennsylvania in that case. Takes 18 days, that's fine. Okay, research. We did inherit the research. That was already completed. So we don't have a doctrine. Red Guard Militia, minus 20% division organization, plus 2 recovery rate, minus 50 max planning. The rightful president, division speed plus 20%, division recovery plus 20, and reinforce rate plus 10. Removed in a year and a bit. Can't do any of those, can't do any of those. Second Continental Army. Army experience, infantry technology, infantry tech. Smedley Butler gains expert delegator and adaptable. Oh, adaptable's good. Potential officers, more mobilization. The Long War. War syndicalism. Lose political power, gain resource efficiency, lose stability. War support goes down. Factory output goes up. Military factory construction speed goes up. Civilian factory construction speed goes down. Modify the Red Guard militia by more organization and more planning. What was it again? Currently they just have a bonus to recovery and a negative to organization and planning. Are there any exclusives here? No. Rebel Girl, more manpower, recruitable population, standardized unit sizes, removes the Red Guard militia. Roll out the M1, reduce ahead of time penalty and give 100% research bonus for the next research of the M1 Thompson. Red Dragon, fort attack for artillery. Every armor leader gets more defense and more attack. More planning and logistics. Industrial Juggernaut. Max factories in state plus 20%? Crikey, that's a lot. In America? Change economy law to total mobilization. I wonder if I keep that after the war. Then there's motorized. It doesn't look like there's very many choices regarding doctrine, so we can kind of go in any direction that we want, depending of course on what companies we have available. We are going to have quite a lot of manpower, and also a lot of industry. We are the real industrial titans here. Light tanks, medium tanks, heavy tanks. We have Michigan, of course we do. GM, heavy tank production cost down, heavy tank defense, hardiness, reliability, soft attack. We don't have Ford though. We do not have Remington, but we do have Studebaker. Or the motorized. So our company choices aren't as strong. It's only motorized again, which is really good. The production cost for motorized. So we could just have a really rapid army. What about our artillery manufacturers? No. Chief of Staff, School of Defense is entrenchment and forts. Maneuver is speed. Motorized soft attack, mechanized soft attack. Special forces, artillery. Armored spearhead, motorized, mechanized, max speed. Armor, max speed. We could have some really nippy motorized armies. Like super fast. Maybe with Fisher tank arsenal. I don't know, Baldwin locomotive works. Or just really cheap GM heavy tanks. Henry Ford moved his operation south when he joined the AFP. Oh, I see. So we can go heavy tanks, which are not fast moving at all. But those heavy tanks will have incredible crushing power if we have mobile warfare. They just won't be very rapid response, but we could still go down like mobile infantry for amazing motorized and mechanized, supported by heavy tank divisions for the actual breakthroughs. Just saw Quill 18's playing Hearts of Iron 4 Kaiserreich. Everyone guess who he's playing as? Oh, he was playing as Belgium last week. So I'm guessing Belgium, continuing. Which is why I'm a little bit surprised we have as many viewers as we do, because I thought I'd have a lot more competition from Quill. Do I have enough oil for motorized currently? We do have Pennsylvania for oil imports. And Michigan produces a bit. And again, I'm thinking long term here. Like, the Civil War is going to be fought with militia. We could build militia units with a couple of heavy tank divisions. I mean, the other thing we could do is we could use artillery in combination with the heavy tanks, or we could even just use the heavy tanks not as heavy tanks, but as like SPGs. That does make them cheaper, doesn't it? I mean, we'd have to wait until the 1941 models anyway, because the 34 ones are awful. The other thing is, do we have enough chromium for this? Plus capital ships. Chromium sources are Turkey, so the Ottoman Empire, and South Africa. We probably don't have the chromium for heavy tank production. Oh, and Cuba. So we might need to install a government on Cuba. Heavy tank destroyers have the same armor as the regular heavy tanks, which is the main reason to take them. So no, I don't think building SPGs, heavy SPGs, is worthwhile. However, having heavy tank destroyers could be, because that will allow them to take down enemy tanks. And then we could, if we have cheap heavy tanks, we could do heavy tanks and a division of heavy tank destroyers. So we get the breakthrough from the regular unit, and then the penetration from the destroyer. The heavy tanks are just generally really expensive. Yeah, infantry equipment early on is definitely all I need. Like, we're talking 41 here. I'm just trying to decide what doctrine I want to go for. That's the main question. Because we could do heavy tanks with superior firepower, artillery support. Heavy tanks in mobile warfare, I'm just not convinced that really works. Unless we have lots and lots of heavy tanks in a template. Which, with 15% cheaper heavy tanks plus American industry, is viable. We could always have mixed divisions. We could have a couple of heavy tanks to make the breakthroughs, and then light tanks with motorized or mechanized to exploit the breakthroughs. And because of School of Maneuver and stuff, our tanks will be quicker than usual. How fast do they go? Max speed 6 kilometers. Infantry is 4. And it never goes above 6. Especially if we actually start armoring them. So they're always going to be moving at the speed of infantry. I mean, what we could do is mechanized and heavy tanks for, like, ultimate smashing. Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to go mechanized and heavy tanks. Do we have something which can reduce the cost of mechanized? And we're just going to have a lot of them. Yeah, we do. Studebaker. Well then, decision made. We're going to go General Motors, Studebaker, and we'll go from there. Wait, Gold? Bethlehem Steel has resource production and factory construction speed? Oh, but it loses some research speed. I'm okay with that. Interesting. And there's a lot of things happening here you don't often see. The other question is, do we have anything which lets us get heavy tanks sooner? I somewhat doubt it. That's artillery. Motorized production cost reduction. So I think we'll have like standard infantry units which are just motorized. And then we'll have our breakthrough heavy units. Heavy tank divisions backed up by pure motorized to take land after punching a hole. That's exactly what I was thinking, Isdar. So we are definitely taking mobile warfare. That's also going to mean the heavy tanks have more organization, meaning you can pack more of them into a unit. We're going to take construction